Good evening, everyone. This is the regular September meeting of the Spencer Finance Committee. It is September 15th at 7:10 p.m. And since we have a quorum, we're going to get started. First up is the minutes of the August 25th, 2015 meeting, which were emailed to everyone. Anyone have a motion or,
Make a motion to accept.
okay, and second?
I'll second.
All right, any further conversation, discussion, questions, comments? All those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. Correspondence, I've been passing the correspondence folder around just in the interest of time. What's in it is, as I said, the sign up for the Mass Municipal Association. They have a day-long workshop on October 17th. That they invite finance committee members to. It's a pretty interesting program. It's being held in Sturbridge. And anyone who wants to go, I'm sure we can fund that. The book, the Mass Municipal Association Directory is in here, and of course, the Beacon, the fall 2015 Beacon. So everyone's had a chance to look at all that.
Speed read.
The town, right, well, you can have it back if you want. The town administrator was unable to be here today. He wasn't feeling well. The fall town information is they set the date for November 19th. And last night the Board of Selectmen did, and he will have warrant information for us on October 20th, the October 20th meeting. He'll have, because they just opened the warrant last night, so there's nothing to put in today. Under B, any other, he told me that the Financial Planning Committee was at
Financial
Yes.
plan, yes.
was at the Board of Selectmen's meeting last night, and so perhaps you, Paul and Tom, you would have some, do you have anything? He said you might have something to say. It was about the roads project?
It's, yeah, I don't know how to put it.
It was basically just a startup meeting to introduce us and, you know, who's on the board that's on it, who's on the finance committee that's on it. And the fellow from the bank, I told him, there's four of you guys, stay close, we need the money to finance this. But it was just outlining what's gonna happen over the next several months, hopefully.
So it was, there were no, you didn't take any action or anything, you just.
No action as
Yeah.
far as that goes.
So
Okay.
just informational?
It was just informational to start with. They're talking about trying to do a comprehensive study of all the roads that are in Spencer.
Right.
To try and identify, you know, truly what needs to be done, what the costs are associated with getting it done, and then trying to come up with a way to present it to the town, to try and get them to agree, whether it's a debt exclusion or not, to fund it on a yearly basis. So we're really not at that point of saying anything more than that. You know.
That you just really just.
Right.
Okay. So, yeah, that was pretty much what you said. That, something about talking about the roads project. All right, next on the agenda is the Community Preservation Act Information Discussion Follow-Up. So I don't know if any of you have had time to go and look at that website and get some more detail or background about it. First of all, as a committee, I'm not asking for a vote, just a consensus, is this something that you would like to pursue as the Finance Committee? Explore the potential for accepting the Community Preservation Act.
You're hitting me a little bit with this where I'm not familiar with what the
No,
community
oh, I'm sorry,
preservation
no,
act
it's,
is.
last,
Last
Meeting.
meeting,
you missed the last
I was on
meeting.
vacation.
You were. So,
Right.
wait a minute, everybody, let me see if, I had a handout that, Let me see, I think I have an extra copies of it, so. That was my copy. If not, I can send it on. Yeah, okay, so here's a summary of it. So, last month, my printer was out of black ink, so that's blue. This
Okay.
month, I'm out of white paper, so you got yellow.
That was very nice,
So anyway, the community, the CPA, the
I'm
Community
on money, so I'm not wearing
Preservation Act,
socks.
and just to review quickly, is it can be it has to be, if the town accepts, for the town to accept it, it has to be, voted on a ballot. And what it does is allows a surcharge on your tax bill that goes into a specific fund, and these are the things that it can go into, open space, historic resources, recreational land, and community housing. And the state provides some matching money as well. Now, there's some detail that involves, but that's essentially what it is, and the state provides some matching money. And the money, a certain percent has to be spent every year, but it's fairly small percent. And you can accumulate it, kind of like a savings account, just for these 4 categories. So for example, if we had accepted this and started accumulating the money, we wouldn't have had to have a debt exclusion to pay for the small farm. We could have just taken it out of this money to pay our share of the small farm, or the Sibley, or any of those things. Historic resources, any of the buildings, historic buildings in town, recreational land, work on the parks, things like that. So that's plus community housing. It can be used for acquisition, and preservation, and rehab and restoration, and a couple of other minor categories. So I presented it last month to everybody. I've gone back and done a little more looking at it as well, and you can put limitations on it. You can say it doesn't apply to the first 100,000 evaluation. You can say anybody over, as seniors, however you define seniors, 60, 65, whatever it is, are exempt. There are a lot of caveats that you can put on it as well. But if you can levy up to 3% of the tax bill, and you set that in the bylaw as well, how much you're going to levy. And in the beginning, the state provided 100% match. So if the town of Spencer accumulated $50,000 for FY15, the state would kick in $50,000. But that has not happened because the state ran into, guess what, funding issues themselves. So they have been, each year, for the past either 2 or 3 years, kicking in a dollar amount, a specific dollar amount, and then they reimburse at 80% of the fund. They divvy up based on the percentage that the town has accumulated. So that if we had 50,000 and Lester had 100,000, we wouldn't get 50 and they wouldn't get 100. There'd be some percentage, and I'm not sure what the formula is. But anyway, that's how they're allocating it. But it's restricted, and it's kind of like a savings account.
So it isn't necessarily only a 3% surcharge?
No,
could
it can
less
be
than
up
that.
to.
Okay.
Up to, and it can have different kinds of, as I said, limitations. So it can limit, can be on, exclude the first X number of dollars, exclude by age, exclude by income,
Mhm.
all those kind. I mean, there are lots of adjustments that can be made to it, but essentially it's about creating a fund to fund certain particular things. And the reason I introduced it for two reasons. One is, it was one of my clients got some planning money. It's very difficult to get planning money for a lot of things. They'll give you money once your plans are in place. And one of my clients used it as a matching grant for a state planning grant. Went to the town and to her town and said, you know, because the library got this much for a state planning grant, we need to match it. Can we use community preservation funds? And that's how they paid for it. So they didn't have to go for an override. They didn't have to take it out of operating expenses and things like that. So that's how I heard about it. And then I went to the Preservation Mass Conference a couple of weeks ago and went to a presentation on it. And that's where, like, these handouts came from. This is the pattern of how this was just qualifying historic projects. There are 4 different kinds of projects that can qualify. So I went to this Preservation Massachusetts Historic Preservation Conference and went to the section that was that this communitypreservation.org group put on. And so anyway, I brought it to the Finance Committee to see if we as a group would like to do the research, find out the feeling of among other people in town, because you have to establish a committee, and on the committee, among other things, has to be some representatives, Historic Commission, Planning Commission, I think Conservation, and something else. I think it's all on that piece of paper. So, you know.
Question on,
Yeah.
So it says you voted at either town meeting or at
No, at
ballot?
ballot?
At the ballot,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
One concern I would have is like, you know, if you laid out all the ramifications beforehand, say, you know, if you're 60 or older, it doesn't apply to you, you know, certain income limits. I'd just be concerned that, you know, these people who are, you know, over 60 and say, well, hey, it doesn't apply to me, it's free tax money, whatever. Let's all go vote for it,
Yeah,
you know, and stick
Yeah.
other people with it and
Yeah.
stuff, you know, that's.
Well, so, but that's
Concern
why,
I
but see,
have.
that's, I mean, so we're like not anywhere near that yet. We're just at the point of, is this something worth exploring as another revenue source for the town? To particularly, I mean, you're talking about the capital, the financial planning meeting that you two were at last night, and the roads. So if we didn't have to pay for the small farm, for example, out of, whatever manner we did, could that money have gone to roads? So is this a mechanism to put one pot of money aside that frees up money for other things as well? So what I'm saying is it worth looking into? Do you all think it's worth looking into?
I guess I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around, we have a laundry list of things we need,
Yeah.
capital-wise,
Yeah,
and to say, oh no, we can't use this money, we're just gonna squirrel some away for whenever a project comes around, that qualifies, shouldn't we be using the money presently in the capital list?
well, first of all, this money doesn't exist.
Well, if you're taking it out of somebody's pocket, it exists,
No,
I
it
guess.
doesn't, no, you have to
If you're tacking it onto my tax bill, I think
Well,
it exists.
but it doesn't exist unless you would adopt this community preservation fund. So you're not taking it away from anything, because it's not there. So if you take,
No,
you
but
can't,
we can't buy a police cruiser because we're putting money in the bank for a preservation.
no,
Because we can't use it
No.
for that particular
Figure-
source.
No, but you're not gonna, unless you enact this, you can't do any of this work that this money allows you to do, because you don't have it, it doesn't exist.
I think what you're saying though is basically it's sort of like a debt exclusion or an override, continuous all the
It
time.
continues.
Right,
And
and
then
so it's, right,
People would have to vote, if we did want, a new fire truck or something like that,
You
Left
can't
one
use
on
it for the
top of
fire
that.
truck, but I can paint an old house
Top.
with it.
Well,
Kind of.
but, so I guess that, the thing is do we wanna look into exactly clarifying to make us, so that we can understand, because, as I said, there are some choices that have gotten made to spend, for example, the town hall, all the stuff, all the work that was done at the town hall that we got the debt exclusion for. If we had had this in place, and I'm not sure that this is quite old enough to have done that, but had we had this in place, all right, we would have had this pocket of money over here that we've been building up for time, that we could have used for the town hall. Then we wouldn't have had to have that debt exclusion. Then we could have had a debt exclusion for a fire truck instead.
I guess the only thing
But it's still two pots you're filling.
But you're not, but this
Instead of one
pot,
pot.
but this pot,
You're filling two.
I know what you're saying.
yeah, oh, I know.
You're filling two pots.
You're filling two pots, however, unless you create this pot, it doesn't get filled at all. And so the original one pot gets spread
Unless-
out over,
Unless it rises up in the capital or becomes an exemption or whatever.
right. So this is a mechanism to address certain specific funding elements.
Well, personally, for me, I don't know if I want to be looking to the state,
That's my,
hoping for
that's,
money. I
This stinks of the
just
corn
really
bill.
want to cut the
Okay.
cord if, you know.
So here's the deal. You don't have to accept the state money. And there's
I
nothing that
I
says
honestly
that.
don't want
Hey,
to.
what do you
I mean,
care?
this
Well,
is.
no, you're not gonna, but the thing-
Creating this doesn't tie you to anything from the state. It doesn't tie you to anything. It allows you to have access when they share the money.
No, but
Right
if
now.
if you thought you could double your money by getting matching funds, that's one thing.
But
Oh,
now
I
you're
put in
saying
a
no.
percent, they put in a percent.
Remember the
but
corn bill?
Now they've already backed off from that, so.
Well, they just put in a smaller percent. They don't put in 100%. And perhaps, you're right, they perhaps would not, some years not put in any money at all, so you just have your own money, right? But right now,
But don't we kind of have things like this in place to some extent, like there's different savings in capital improvement, savings where Adam has put, a portion of money when we have it.
well, he puts it into capital, right, he puts it into capital and, I mean, there are certain limitations on what how you can squirrel it away and save it and earmark, and you can't earmark certain things and so on either, so, it's not as, flexible.
Well, I think it would have to be some salesmanship.
Well,
on this.
all I'm saying right now
You know,
is,
last
all I'm
spring-
saying right now, I only know the very tip of the iceberg. We can form a subcommittee or as a committee of the whole. Do you want to pursue getting the information? Somebody from the what do you call it, the organization, the capital planning organization would come out and really,
A community preservation actor.
yeah, a community preservation actor would come out and would explain it and would answer those questions and, you know, help to understand why would this be an advantage or not. She said, the woman who did the presenting said, call us up, we come and talk to everybody, because it is, you know, it's pretty complex. Anything to do with money is pretty complex. And when, I mean, I went back to the website and read more. I can only do it in small chunks because there is a lot going on.
To digest.
Yes, there is a lot to digest. And so the question is it worth, the thing that made me, two things that made me think about it, as I said, when I see it created a source so that this particular town, the Board of Library Trustees, did not have to go and have a special article on the warrant to match the $20,000 grant for the library planning, or $25,000, whatever it was. because this fund existed. Had this fund not, the other towns I work with have either had to go to town meeting to get the money, or have used trust funds, you know, a variety of other things. And so that's what made me ask about it. But then, listening to all the other towns that have had success with it, is it something, why does it make sense to certain towns to do this?
It's
And
kind
is
of a
it
money
something
thing,
that we
too.
should, I'm sorry?
I think it's kind of a money thing. If you have the money, it's
Yeah.
very easy to do.
Well, if you have people willing to accept that it's an extra tax, it's willing to, I mean, for this particular purpose
We
in
don't
their
have
Well,
market.
I'm gonna say, in the spring, we tried to, what was it, 300,000 the police and fire needed so
Right.
they could talk to each other,
Yeah.
actually save
And they
lives.
wouldn't even
Right.
vote that
And
in?
then
Right.
voted it down. I
Right.
mean, and that's only pennies on the tax bill, not 3%, so.
Oh, this wouldn't, and I think when you, I don't know if I put it in that handout I gave last week. You know, if you have, but I had it somewhere, if you had 200, if your tax bill was 200,000, if your tax bill was 200,000, it'd be about $60 a year. That would go into an account that would be targeted for certain of these things that would then allow other, the regular tax money to go for other stuff. It's, you know, that's it. So,
My opinion, it's only my opinion, is this is to a certain extent, a special interest situation. It's very limited as to what the money goes towards. With what Tom and I and the others are trying to do in the case of trying to improve upon the roads, we're gonna ultimately end up having to look at trying to come up with some percentage of money excluded from the budget that is gonna be dedicated to trying to fix these roads. From my perspective, more people in town are gonna get something out of, whether it's 3%, 5%, or whatever it is, that goes only to road repairs and as compared to getting anything out of this. I
okay,
mean, this is a little bit of, you know, the horse is already out of the barn. We've already bought Sibley Farm. We've already
Right.
done these other things.
right,
There isn't a whole hell of a lot left in this town. I don't want to keep the Sugden building, you know, which some people
Right.
would say, well, that's a historic site. You know, I don't want to have any money that's going to go towards that type of stuff. Going back to the townspeople to provide money for a budget, for example. Now, if, for example, we ended up having a line item in the budget that says it's going to go towards something like this. Just, you know, Adam put something in there. It's his responsibility to try and figure out whether, with what, you know, the rising costs are for insurance and all this other stuff, is there gonna be any money available to stick into that account? If there's not, the account just sits there. In fact, he actually has an account like that right now where, you know, if he had money, he put it in there. But to go back to the townspeople and say, I wanna take X amount of dollars out to repair the roads, because they're bad in need. And oh, by the way, we'd like to take 1 to 3% of your money every
But not
year,
everybody's.
and maybe not everybody's, and put it into this account that may just sit there for years until we figure out if we're gonna need it or use it, but it's still coming out of the tax base. To me, it
well,
just doesn't make
and
sense.
so that's, I mean, that's why I'm saying, do we wanna look at identifying, because we don't want it to sit for years. I mean, you don't, it's, the intent of it is not for it to sit for years, so you're right. I mean, maybe we are past the time that it would have made a great deal of sense to us. It does, I mean, it's not, I mean, it includes housing, housing, historic preservation, recreational land, and open space. So, maybe we are past that now. Maybe 5 or 8 years ago, this
5 or
would
8
have
years
made
ago, it might have been fine. I just look at it as
sense.
if the taxpayer has a buck that
Yeah.
he's putting towards taxes.
Yeah,
And we're asking him to give 1 to 3 cents of that towards this plan, or give 3 to 5 cents of that buck towards fixing the roads, which is something he can definitely see and see a benefit from, you know, you can only go back to the well so many times. I mean, you can come up with 1 million, you know, groups that can get together to try and figure out how we can raise money and take money from the taxpayers. And it's just gonna get to the point where the taxpayer goes, whoa, you know, it's nice that you came up with a plan that you think you can spend more of our money on certain things, you know, and all we want is 1 or 3%. If I take, you know, like you said, on a $200,000 house, let's say it's $60 a year, it's gonna come out every single year,
Right.
okay? Could very well be, and I don't know, we haven't figured it out yet, but it could very well be that this roads project may end up being $60 to $100 a year that we're asking people to potentially give us to fix the roads. Well, I'd much rather have that $60 going towards the $60 to $100
Yep.
for the roads
Yep.
than going into an account that, God, if we ever get another opportunity on a Sibley farm or something like that, we'll have money that we can spend on it.
Or the heating system for the town hall or anything like that.
Yeah, well,
So, I mean, because it does cover, but I felt that I had to bring it up
and I appreciate
because
that.
I didn't want, because of the way I heard about it, I thought, you know,
No, it's good
we have to talk
information.
about, we have to
Sure.
explore
Yeah,
Yeah.
all these
Sure.
possibilities. We have to, you know, get them out there and get the information out to people as well. And that's why I'm saying, so it sounds like nobody's interested.
well, I'm just voicing my opinion that I'm
Yeah.
not interested, but
Yeah.
I don't want to be speaking for the other people.
No, I share your opinion exactly.
Yeah, it just,
Plus the fact that the state is putting into it, the state's gonna have some say in what you can spend it on.
Well, they
There
do,
are
I mean,
guidelines.
There are
they,
rules.
You bet.
they,
There are
well,
rules.
It's not the state's
Of
town,
course.
it's our town.
of course, no, but the rules are,
How you can spend the money.
there are rules because this is a fund for these 4 items. So, yeah, there are rules. You
Yeah.
can't spend it on a police car because that's not what this is for. Grant money's
I
the
guess I
same
don't
way,
like
you
being
know.
hand-tied like that.
Oh, but see,
you know.
all right, and see, I don't see it, I'm not trying to argue the point, we won't go.
No, and actually, I appreciate
don't
all the
see
work
it-
you do
I don't
on it,
see
you
it
know?
as having my hands tied, I just see it as a particular opportunity and various opportunities. And I guess, because I've worked with so many grants over the years, what I understand is that people who give grants, give them for what they give them for. If you can use it, yes, you have to abide by their restrictions, but on the other hand, if you didn't apply for that grant, the job wouldn't get done, or you wouldn't have a funding mechanism. So it's okay to have strings for certain things, sometimes. And so this, I have no problem, this was set up the way it was set up, it has the strings it has. We don't have to buy into it. But the fact that this is just a mechanism among a variety of other mechanisms, that's all, so. And it worked great in the beginning when the state was matching stuff 100%.
Well, it's all called a regional school district too. When we first started out, the state was matching and it was wonderful. And now they pulled the rug right out
Oh,
from
yeah,
under
they
you.
did.
You know, and you're saying, okay, what happened? Well, we
Right.
grow up, we ought to know better,
Well,
by now.
Right, and the only difference with this would be that if you have the money in the fund and you're not gonna use it anymore, there's a dissolution. The state can't take your town money.
That's right, it's your money,
It's
right?
your money. But anyway, all right, but that's fine, I just really thought we needed to know about it, and,
I think
We
if we
appreciate that,
weren't
so.
buried with so many other needs in this town, that would probably be something you could really,
yeah, well, I
sink
think,
your teeth
right,
into,
if
but
we had, I think it's
There's just too
been,
many things,
I think if we had known about it,
20 years ago.
yeah, and it's been around late 90s, I think it was established, maybe early 2000, I'm not sure. It hasn't been around like forever, but it's been around a few years.
I don't know if I'm misreading this, but it says additional funding from the state surplus instituted in 2012. So
That was the revision.
that wasn't the first time that they
No.
started kicking money in.
No, they started,
They
when
started
when this
with
was set up,
Not really.
it was 100% matched.
Okay.
So if you, they had they took it out of just wherever they got it. If Spencer raised $50,000, state kicked in $50,000. They had to amend it in 2012, as I understand it, because they couldn't afford the full match. So they appropriated a sum of money and shared, so it wasn't a match anymore, but it was a contribution based on whatever formula they had. So-
Which in this case, we're asking the townspeople to take a fixed amount of money out every single year, where the state has the ability on a yearly basis to decide whether they can fund it or can't fund it.
That is
Well,
correct, that is correct.
You know, that's a big difference.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so that's the same thing as if Adam could figure out, after he paid all of his bills, could figure out if he had any additional money he could put into it. If he can't, he can't. But anything he can put in there,
Right,
you know, you could still set up the account specific to be used for only one thing. Like when he has the auctions on the properties
oh,
and
right,
things like
right,
that,
right,
he puts money in, you know, that they can buy additional property if it makes sense, those type of
Right.
things. Could easily be done for something like this as well, I think, but
Um,
I'm not asking,
and I'm not sure how, I'd have to go back and look, you did not used to be able to earmark stuff? Like, I'm not sure if that's
well,
changed.
yes, you could, only, and I say that back when they had us going around and evaluating all of the town buildings,
Yes,
there was about $190,000 that was put into an account which was supposed to have been used for just the buildings. And so it was earmarked
oh,
for that
that's right, it was,
specifically.
right, it was a specific account.
So you could,
Right.
they could possibly come up with something
Right.
similar to that.
Yeah.
You know, and if he can come up with the additional money, fine, you know, but.
Yeah, maybe it is that you have to create an account.
But I'm just convinced that the state on everything, doesn't matter what it is they come up with, that they're gonna provide matching funds for, they continually screw us,
You think?
you know?
Yeah.
Public school, transportation, you
Special
name
ed.
it, special ed, all of these things, that they were gonna, you know,
Oh,
we're
yeah.
gonna pay you
Yeah,
for doing
yeah,
it.
yeah.
And then, you know, anybody,
They don't.
you know, so. No, I appreciate you bringing it, but based upon what I'm facing with, you know, the emergency financial planning board.
Yes, it is.
This is just something that I don't think would go over well with anybody.
All right, no problem. I just, didn't want to do a ton of work on it
You didn't have to.
if you people
Right.
aren't, if we as a committee, somebody would have to spearhead it. If
Sure.
we as a committee aren't interested, then I don't want to do a ton of work on it. There's no point in doing it.
Right.
A ton of work on it. Right. Okay, thank you. I appreciate all your input. Okay, I sent everybody the draft letter to the controller and superintendent after our discussion last month. Last month I asked everybody to go through this booklet, and essentially what the discussion was that you wanted more detail and more historic detail, so how'd I do?
Pretty good.
On the accountability,
Yeah,
educator
it's-
evaluation,
it's
I
a
asked
great-
that question at the meeting,
yeah,
and,
I'm sorry,
and Kevin Hayes said that, that was because the union balked at it because it wasn't negotiated. So that's why they haven't done it yet. The union thought that should have been negotiated part of the contract. And they balked at doing it. So, now, you could change that last part of it, was this due to lack of funding or some other reason? You could put down, has that issue been resolved? Would be better worded, I think. I think
Yeah.
everybody,
right,
including the
when
union, sees
as
the
I
benefit
said
of it.
earlier, this was a
Yeah.
draft. And I told you, when in the district I worked in, we spent 5 years designing the
Yeah.
evaluation. So anyway, I just tried, I have not really fine-tuned the wordsmithing or anything
Okay.
like that on this. I just was trying to get out and see if I got the points based on the conversations we had last week, so, okay, here it is. So let's look at that first. Did I cover what you wanted to know, and did I miss anything? And as I said, I did forget to put in the school choice. Do you know why they're leaving for school choice?
That was the only thing in reading through it that jumped out at me, everything else looks fine.
Yeah, I sent it off this morning, I said, oh, I forgot. I had it on my mind, I just
Well, like
forgot.
you said, it's a
I
draft.
write it down, that's
so-
right. That's what it says in big words, right there, draft. So is there anything else you wanna know? Some of these things, when I was going through the book, Desi has a ton of this stuff on their website. And a lot of this is just straight from, I mean, they just
The
printed
website.
it all right from the website. So. But for me, I mean, I was looking at some of the things that they gave us, like the information technology. They just list how many computers they have, and then they say how many computers are in buildings. They don't talk about how they're deployed, who's using them, are they in classroom? I mean, they say numbers in classrooms, but they don't really give any, you know, in classrooms, so is that a teacher computer, is that a student computer, are they networked, you know? Are they old, are they new? And then pupil services, I know that there have been some staff changes, and some of that is due to the population. You know, some years you have more kids in certain
Yep.
special ed programs and so on, and same with out-of-district placement, and that's totally random. You never know who's gonna move in and out of town. But it's still interesting, you know, it's still interesting, just the trend, I would, you know, I guess I'm, as a percentage of the regular population, what do we got? Athletics, they just listed the sports that were offered last year. So but year over year, have they been consistent in offering the same sports, or have they added or subtracted some? And I just think all these things sort of give a sense of if they've been like cutting sports, they must have funding cut. Do they have funding cuts, or is it the lower population, all those different kinds of things? The free and reduced lunch is another thing. A lot of state, federal, and funds are based on free and reduced lunch. There's some grants that we can't even apply for because you need 90-something%. But also, it's telling about the population, the demographic, town demographically, if the free and reduced lunch is going up, or going down, for that matter. Same with custodial services, are the schools being maintained, are they being kept clean? And then the revenue and expenditures, the reason I asked for those particular year, and I can go back, because I did say 202 and 2002 and 2007 in the other one, and I'll go back and make those even, just as touchstones, yeah, comparisons over time.
I think the biggest thing we were talking about last time is just streamlining all that information.
Yeah, so
I mean,
these
the book
were all
could be
just chart,
less than half
yeah.
that size, you know?
Yeah. Right. Well, a lot of this is just totally photocopied or printed from the state website. Which is why I said, didn't include anything about any of that in here. There's nothing that speaks to any of that, because it's, you know. But I think these, if these were put into, right, give us this information. It's all very nice that that we had the 2014 information for, say, the cafeteria, you know, but it's an awful lot of pages of month by month costs.
Well, nearly all you
that-
want is like the yearly analysis
Yeah,
or
right, I mean,
comparative.
it's all very nice, but
Yeah.
it's, let's cut to the big picture.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
that's, I mean, so I guess maybe I need to word it and say, this is really what we wanna know. What you gave us is
We don't
all,
want the boilerplate.
this is what we want to know.
No.
You know. And, but I think a really big thing is that they did not address. You know, that whole net school spending, you know how when Bay Path comes in, they talk about, it's the same formula. It's exactly the
Yeah.
same. But that historically, you know, how have we done with net school spending versus, you know, the foundation budget? Because we as a town have pretty much contributed more than the minimum. And I think it's important for people in town to see that as well, you know, it's kind of a good thing. So, anything else?
I would just have to add that, overall, I think this book was well done. It was one of the better ones I've seen in a long time for Spencer.
It's the only one I've seen from the school in a
But a
long
lot
time.
of these I wasn't here at last meeting,
Oh,
so
okay.
excuse me, but, a lot of these requests, I think are getting into real nitty gritty where, say, fiscal 12 and 13 weren't our strongest years, and they may not have accurate numbers in the same format that they do now, so it's really hard to compare fiscal year 12, say, custodial budget with this year's custodial budget, because they've realigned everything over the
And
past
that
3 years.
Would be the point.
So,
That would be.
So even the summary line wouldn't tell us much?
Correct.
On the
no,
3 years.
they've
And that-
realigned all their accounts to now state level accounts.
They had actually,
So
those
because we had
had-
the overseer for a
Right.
year. we
those
had a
those
interim
had existed in the
superintendent.
past,
Right,
and then we had the gap years,
so there's,
Which
it's
is-
really hard to compare.
exactly the point.
Right.
That's what I want. That's what I want made clear, that that
The
exactly,
shuffling of accounts is
exactly
where it
what
all
went
went
on.
wrong. Right,
and what it took to sort it out again. And that's why asking for the FY 2002, 2007, and then the stuff in the middle, and then what's going on now, to sort of make the point that, how much work it took to unscramble
right.
some of the things that had gone on.
So I don't know if they actually have a lot of this
And, but you know what?
information.
We need to hear them say that.
Right, exactly, which is fine.
No, you gotta put it out there,
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
you know?
absolutely.
And you know, even if it doesn't compare now, it will eventually. We'll have a history eventually. Right now,
Well,
we
and the
don't.
overall aspect of it too, it will compare if they include the town funding and all those funding mechanisms.
Right,
You should
right.
be able to look at that.
Oh, yeah,
You
that, oh, that, yeah, because the state does that. That's,
Exactly.
you know, the big picture stuff, the state does. But I
So
mean,
that would be nice
I
to
have
see.
budgets, I have the school budgets going back since long before I was on the finance committee, that were aligned to the state account definitions and line items and all, that suddenly didn't, that they fell through the rabbit hole or something like that. But I mean, I just think they went to the trouble of putting this together, and they went to the trouble of asking us if we had any comments, what would be helpful to us. And so these are the kinds of things that everybody said they thought they would be helpful. Now, if you, if you wanna think about it, review it and stuff for a couple of days, and if there's something you think else needs to be added or whatever, I don't need to send this out until you've all had a chance to make sure that we've got everything in it. I wanted to get started.
Comment I had was, do we really want to get into who's cleaning the buildings and painting the walls and cutting the grass? You know,
Well,
you want to go to that
the
level?
town owns some of the buildings. And if they're not being properly maintained, that's an extra cost, that could be potential extra cost to the town.
So you're telling them to justify their expense?
You could
No, just
drive
asking
by
them.
and see if they're mowing the lawn. I-
Right,
I-
yeah, but, no, but,
Doesn't look bad.
I think they all look pretty good, but.
It's because it hasn't rained, well, it did.
sorry,
Grass isn't
nobody's
growing,
mowed
yeah,
the
right.
lawn,
How that goes.
nobody's had to
All I
mow
got
the
is
lawn
a
for.
desert.
Ours was crunching under that.
Right, same here, got a desert.
Yep.
But, I mean, but see, the thing is, if they're saying, if they tell us, that there are gaps that they can't provide for these things, I mean, that's more justification for, supporting the budget, the school budget, supporting, you know, maybe there really isn't enough money. Maybe there's too much and it's going in the wrong place. But I think that maintenance is a pretty important issue.
I guess you compare the two districts between them and Bay Path. Bay Path has trouble spending the minimum amount, and we're giving extra to the schools over the minimum.
And
So
Bay Path-
what's the difference between the two?
Right, and Bay Path's formula, Volk School's formula, they get more money, they get a higher percentage from the
Yeah.
state, yeah, they do. And then, so, yeah, look at some of those things, is, what's at the bottom of it, you know, what are the different expenses that Spencer East Brookfield has that they're having trouble meeting versus that Bay Path is able to meet theirs. So, I'm not sure, I mean, we've got to just get some commonalities, I guess is what it is. And the comparison of per pupil expenditures, I actually had a client asking me this the other day because I was doing a comparison for another town for a project I'm working on. And it was the town that defined it. The town defined the comparison community. So Spencer, for the town stuff, we have a list of comparison communities. So that, I honestly really want to know what, because the question that came up the other night was, when I was telling this client what the towns were that they were compared to, they were saying, why, why are we compared to this one, and this one? A couple of them they understood, a couple of them they were baffled. I said, well, talk to your town administrator and ask. Some of it's population, but there are also a few other factors in there. In some vast mathematical area, EQVs, and I don't know what, they come up with them, so. And they sometimes change. So anyway, there we go. If you have no more comments or questions or anything, we can move on. I don't know, are you all set, or do you wanna cogitate upon it for a little while longer, and we can have a final copy at the next meeting? Because then that's, essentially, we want this when they come to us next year.
We think we want to give it as soon as possible so they can.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
the process, yeah.
Right, so do you want to wait till the next meeting, or, I mean, I'd like to get it out earlier rather than later, but it's not like we need it for a meeting next week or anything like that.
I don't think your letter needs much more tweaking,
Okay,
really.
whatever.
Personally.
I'm fine with it.
Okay, all right, good. Then I'll work on it, I'll get it. I'll find out if we can have letterhead instead of lemon yellow paper too. Okay, then, I do have one small item under any, while that's going on, I just will make this note that we have, Spencer Cable Access is sponsoring our annual open house next Saturday at the studio from 10 to 2, and it's, to get material, get, food donations for the Spencer Food Pantry. That's what we're, so, 10 to 2, if anyone's interested. And I do have one item under any other, and that is our intrepid videographer, Miss Beth McPherson, is retiring.
Oh,
Much to our chagrin, we do not condone this under any circumstances. Because she's very good at what she does.
when you're gonna be missed.
So we just have a very small token of our appreciation for her to take with us, with her. To signify all the sunshine she brings into our lives every time we see ourselves on TV.
oh, yeah,
Oh,
sometimes better than others, huh?
so anyway,
I get the flowers on.
so
Just
from
shut that off.
us to you.
Yes, I did. Because I control that.
All right, wish you the best
You
of luck
control the
in
vertical.
all your future
control the
endeavors, and
horizontal.
please, don't hesitate to come back.
You mean I can just come watch the meeting? Yes.
No, you still have to turn on the machine. And of course, I will unashamedly use that to make a plea for anyone who would like to take over Beth's
That's a
job.
good idea.
We will train you, we will train you. And you will hear all this for the first time instead of having to watch it on TV. Other than that, does anyone else have anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
Hey, Tom.
Okay, very good. A motion to
Right,
adjourn
8:00.
at 8:00.
Chris
And
seconded.
For a second.
who seconded? Did somebody
Chris.
second?
Chris did,
Oh,
yes.
Chris, okay.
And no one's
All those in
volunteered.
favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned.